Imagine a customer walking into your store on a really busy Tuesday morning. They are absolutely
Oh
furious.
yeah, the classic Tuesday morning nightmare.
Right. And they're trying to return an online order, but your point of sale system has just completely crashed.
Which is just the worst timing.
It really is. And if your frontline associate handles this poorly, if they panic or get defensive or just stare blankly at the screen, you've probably lost a loyal customer for life right there.
Yep. But, I mean, if they handle it well, if they can skillfully de-escalate that tension and seamlessly pivot the conversation.
Then you actually build deeper brand loyalty than if the transaction had just gone smoothly in the first place, right?
Exactly. That is the well-documented paradox of service recovery. But getting a 19-year-old new hire to instantly deploy that level of emotional intelligence during a system crash is, well, it's an incredibly tall order.
And that is exactly the pressure cooker we are exploring today. Welcome to the deep dive. As a retail executive, you already know your industry just doesn't move at a leisurely pace anymore.
Not at all.
You are constantly balancing the need to cultivate these highly empathetic, skilled associates against, the heavy gravity of tight budgets and rapid employee turnover.
It's a massive challenge.
It is. So today we are unpacking a really fascinating piece of source material from Multimedia Plus, or MMP. They are zeroing in on what might be the single biggest bottleneck in retail operations.
Which is how to effectively train frontline staff at the actual blistering speed of the modern market.
Right. And what makes this source material so compelling to me is that it doesn't try to pitch a brand new, unproven psychological theory of how adults learn.
Yeah, it completely skips the gimmicks.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it looks at the absolute most proven, universally accepted method of training, which is scenario-based video role play.
Right.
And it systematically breaks down the logistical nightmare that has basically trapped it in the past for decades.
We really have to spend some time on this first piece because to understand the breakthrough we're going to talk about later, we have to understand the undisputed champion of retail training.
Absolutely.
Because according to the text, nothing beats modeled behavior. I always think about it like this. Imagine I hand you a beautifully designed 50-page PDF manual on how to ride a bicycle.
Oh, boy.
Right. It's got diagrams of the pedals, bullet points on the physics of gyroscopic balance, a whole chapter dedicated to steering angles. You read the entire thing cover to cover. Are you going to be able to just hop on a bike and ride it down the street?
You would crash immediately. I mean, the human brain just does not convert static text into complex physical or emotional mechanics that easily.
It just doesn't translate.
No, reading about physical balance is fundamentally different than watching another human being physically shift their weight, push off the ground, and pedal.
And de-escalating a frustrated customer is just as nuanced as riding a bike, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you cannot teach a brand new associate how to subtly upsell a luxury client by having them read a list of bullet points taped to a break room wall. It
Well,
doesn't
still,
translate into actual behavior on the floor.
it doesn't. And that's because of how our brains actually process human interaction. Like, cognitive psychology tells us a lot about mirror neurons and behavioral modeling.
Right. The science behind it is fascinating.
It really is. When an associate watches a realistic video of a tense customer interaction, their brain is literally mentally rehearsing the scenario. They are visually absorbing those micro interactions.
Like the tone of voice and everything.
Exactly. They're internalizing the tone of voice, the pacing of the apology, the eye contact. They're subconsciously mapping out a behavioral script that they can summon later when they are actually under pressure.
The source makes a really specific point here that I found so interesting. It says associates don't just need to see the perfect happy path scenario.
Where the customer instantly calms down and buys 3 more items.
Yeah, exactly. The unrealistic scenario. They actually desperately need to see ineffective behaviors.
Watching failure is arguably more important than watching success. I mean, if you only show a perfect interaction, the associate learns nothing about the actual friction of the real world.
Right. They need to see what happens when it goes wrong.
They need to see a scenario go entirely off the rails. They need to watch an actor use the wrong tone of voice, and then immediately see the customer's arms cross, their posture stiffen, and their voice raise.
It creates a sort of visual cause and effect.
Precisely. That visual map of cause and effect teaches them how poor communication choices directly and negatively influence customer outcomes.
Which is so much better than just telling them not to do something.
Right. It bridges the gap between memorizing a corporate script and actually developing human empathy. When they see the failure played out visually, the lesson really anchors itself in their memory.
So if watching failure and success through high-quality video role play is the only way to truly teach this stuff, executives are kind of caught in a massive trap.
A huge one.
Because they know what works, but they simply cannot afford to film failure at scale. Which brings us to the massive roadblock detailed in our source material, the blockbuster bottleneck.
Yeah, historically, the challenge for the retail sector was never about proving that scenario-based training worked. I mean, the data was always there.
The proof was undeniable.
Right. The challenge was the sheer agonizing reality of production. You couldn't just snap your fingers and have a training module.
Well, I'm going to push back on this a little bit because I can hear a retail director shouting at their dashboard right now.
Oh, sure.
They're saying, I don't need a Hollywood production. I just need my shift manager to pull out their smartphone, film a quick 2-minute role play with another employee in the back aisle, and upload it. Why doesn't that solve the speed and cost problem?
Because a smartphone video filmed by a shift manager completely lacks instructional design rigor.
That makes sense.
I mean, the shift manager isn't a behavioral psychologist. They don't know how to map specific learning outcomes to conversational pacing. And the audio in a stockroom is usually terrible anyway.
Very true.
The text breaks down the reality of doing this correctly. Producing just one effective scenario-based video requires a massive apparatus. First, you need professional script writing that bakes in the exact psychological triggers you want to teach.
Right. It's not just making it up on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. Then you move to actor casting. You have to find people who can believably portray your specific customer demographic.
Which means scheduling, auditions, and contracts. It's a whole process.
It's exhausting. And then you have to secure filming locations, which usually means shutting down an actual revenue-generating store during off hours.
Or building a really costly replica set.
Right. You have to hire lighting crews, camera operators, and directors to ensure that those crucial micro-expressions are actually caught on film.
And that's just the shoot. I mean, we haven't even touched post-production. You have editing, color grading, adding voiceovers, licensing background music.
It just adds up so fast.
And heaven forbid you need to change something. Let's say you finish the video, and the very next week, the marketing department decides to rebrand the loyalty program.
Oh, that is the worst-case scenario. You are basically back to square one. You either accept that your brand new, extremely expensive training module is fundamentally flawed and outdated.
Which nobody wants to do.
Right. Or you call the entire cast and crew back for a reshoot. Because of this massive logistical bottleneck, retailers engaged in what the source describes as resource hoarding.
Resource hoarding.
Yeah, they knew video role play was the gold standard, but the astronomical cost forced them to use it incredibly sparingly.
They saved it for the big-ticket items, annual onboarding programs, elite leadership retreats, or mandatory legal compliance training.
Exactly. Everything else, the agile, day-to-day operational shifts, got relegated to those static PDFs and boring text-heavy slideshows.
And as an executive, retail simply doesn't move at a blockbuster movie pace anymore. You can't spend 3 months producing a training video for a new product launch.
No, by the time the final cut is approved, that product might already be sitting on the clearance rack.
It's wild how fast things change. I mean, customer expectations shift continuously. A viral social media trend can completely change what people are asking for in your stores overnight.
Or supply chain disruptions might force you to change your return policy on a random Tuesday.
Exactly. Traditional video production is just too rigid, too heavy, and entirely too slow to keep up with the agile realities of the front line.
The friction here is palpable. The industry desperately needed a faster way to produce video.
And that desperation led a lot of brands straight into a technological dead end, didn't it? Let's talk about that first wave of AI solutions and why they completely missed the mark for the retail sector.
Yeah, the source material draws a very sharp, necessary distinction between talking head AI avatars and actual cinematic realism.
Right.
When generative AI first hit the market, a lot of platforms emerged offering a quick fix. They provided a digital avatar standing in front of a fake static background, looking directly into the camera, and basically just reading a script.
It's basically a glorified PowerPoint presentation with a digitized face on it.
That is a perfect description. And the text analyzes exactly why this fails so spectacularly for retail training.
Because they need more than just facts.
Right. Associates do not just need information delivered to them verbally. If they merely needed raw data like, the dimensions of a new television, a PDF actually would suffice.
Sure, that makes sense.
What they need from video is to observe situational dynamics. They need to see two people sharing physical space. They need to watch body language shift, see the tension in a customer's shoulders, watch how the associate utilizes the physical counter space.
And an avatar staring blankly out of a screen just cannot replicate dynamic interpersonal role play.
It completely falls flat.
There is a deeper, almost biological problem with those early avatars too. It's the uncanny valley effect.
Oh, yeah. That is a huge hurdle.
You know that deeply unsettling feeling you get when you look at something that is almost human, but your brain knows something is fundamentally wrong? Like the eyes are just a little too dead, or the mouth movements don't perfectly sync with the audio syllables?
It's incredibly distracting. And it's not just a subtle distraction, it actually derails the cognitive learning process we talked about earlier.
Really? How so?
Well, the human brain dedicates a massive amount of neural processing entirely to reading facial cues and micro-expressions.
So what happens when the brain encounters an AI avatar that is missing those crucial microexpressions?
The fusiform face area of the brain essentially misfires.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, the brain flags the avatar as a threat, or at the very least as a fake.
Oh, wow. A threat. That's intense.
Yeah. And when that happens, the empathy centers of the brain, the exact areas required to absorb emotional intelligence training, literally shut down.
That defeats the entire purpose of the training.
It does. The learner's defenses go up, they notice the unnatural blink rate, the illusion is completely shattered, and the learning simply bounces off them.
They stop paying attention to the customer service technique and start focusing entirely on how weird the robot looks.
Exactly. Realism isn't just a nice bonus feature for a training module. When you are trying to teach human empathy, cinematic realism is a strict neurological requirement.
It's non-negotiable.
Right. If the associate doesn't subconsciously believe the situation they are watching reflects real, authentic workplace dynamics, they will just dismiss the training entirely.
So we are caught between a rock and a hard place here. We know that modeled behavior and cinematic roleplay is the undisputed champion of training.
We know it works.
And we know that traditional Hollywood-style production is far too slow and expensive to scale. And we now know that slapping a talking head AI avatar on a screen is neurologically rejected by the learner.
Which is a pretty bleak picture.
It is. Where does that leave a retail executive who just needs to train their staff on a new store policy by tomorrow morning?
Well, this is where the source material introduces the real technological breakthrough. This specific friction point is exactly what Multimedia Plus is solving with the MMP AI Studio. They have engineered a way to bridge the massive gap between high-quality, emotionally resonant cinematic realism and instantaneous, low-cost scalability.
When I was reading through how this platform operates, I realized my old analogies for video production just didn't work anymore.
It's a completely different paradigm.
It really is. It's not like packing a Hollywood backlot into a laptop. It's actually more like building a complex scenario out of digital Lego bricks.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, MMP provides the pre-engineered blocks of human behavior, and advanced AI acts as the mortar that instantly binds them together into a realistic scene.
That's a great way to put it.
Let's unpack the mechanics of how this actually functions, because they are using Google VO, right? But they aren't just typing generic prompts into a generator.
No, and that is the critical distinction. If you just type a prompt into an AI video generator, you get hallucinations.
Oh, like when the video just goes crazy?
Yeah, exactly. The camera angle shifts wildly, the actor's shirt changes color from frame to frame, or the background completely morphs into something else.
And then you lose narrative continuity, which instantly puts you back into that uncanny valley.
Precisely.
So how does MMP solve that continuity problem?
They solve it with pedigree. MMP isn't just some new tech startup. They have been producing professionally directed live actor scenario training for nearly 30 years.
That is a lot of experience.
It is. So they took those decades of deep instructional design expertise and built a highly constrained framework around the AI. They map out the behavioral nodes first.
What do you mean by behavioral nodes?
They know exactly how a script should flow, how a scene should be directed for maximum learning impact, and what specific emotional beats need to hit before the AI even gets involved.
So they are essentially putting strict guardrails on the AI.
Yes, very strict guardrails. They feed this highly structured instructional design into Google VO's advanced generative video technology.
Okay, I'm following.
Because VO is receiving such specific anchored behavioral nodes, it can generate highly realistic 8-second cinematic clips that maintain absolute temporal and visual consistency.
Wow. And then what happens?
The platform then seamlessly stitches those short clips together into an immersive, fully finished scenario.
Which means we are entirely bypassing the uncanny valley.
Completely.
We aren't looking at a single avatar staring at a camera. We're looking at a dynamic, multi-camera scene with two incredibly realistic human beings interacting in a physical space.
The visual quality, the conversational pacing, the emotional nuance, it creates an environment that feels completely authentic to the frontline team watching it.
That's incredible.
And the source text specifically notes that in many of their deployments, viewers cannot even tell they are watching AI-generated content.
Really? It's that good.
Yeah, it is virtually indistinguishable from a traditionally filmed, expensive production.
Let's bring this back to the daily reality of the executive listening to this. What does this technology actually empower them to do on a Tuesday morning?
It fundamentally alters their operational agility. You are no longer restricted to only deploying high-quality role-play once a year.
The barrier to entry has just been demolished.
It has. The source lists several incredibly practical use cases that are suddenly viable. Imagine complex omni-channel interactions.
Okay, give me an example.
Say a customer buys an item on Instagram, tries to return it in store, and your inventory system doesn't recognize the barcode.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Right. Now you can generate a hyper-realistic training module for that exact, highly specific scenario in minutes.
What about leadership development? Can it handle, like, manager coaching?
Absolutely. You can generate scenarios that help store leaders practice giving difficult feedback to underperforming associates.
Which is always a tough conversation.
It is, and the video can show them the exact tone to use to avoid making the associate defensive.
You can instantly mock up service recovery examples, too. Like, if a specific, highly anticipated product is delayed by the manufacturer, you can have a training video in the hands of your frontline associates the very next morning.
Exactly. It'll show them exactly how to apologize to disappointed customers and seamlessly pivot them to a different item.
You can do selling technique demos, seasonal readiness for the holidays. I mean, the agility is just unprecedented.
And we really need to highlight the core takeaway from the MMP source material here.
What's that?
MMP AI Studio is not trying to reinvent the psychology of retail training. The core methodology, human-centered, scenario-based observation, remains completely unchanged.
They haven't altered how people learn.
Right. They just fixed the delivery mechanism.
They completely transformed the economics and the speed of delivery. They are finally making proven behavioral learning scalable for every single daily challenge a retailer faces.
It's taking the absolute sharpest tool in the shed and making it agile enough to use every single day.
So, to summarize the journey we've been on today, the high-wire balancing act of modern retail hasn't gone away.
No, the pressure's still on.
You still desperately need highly empathetic associates, and you still have to manage razor-thin operational budgets. But the method for bridging that gap has evolved.
It's a game changer.
You no longer have to compromise on the emotional quality of your training just to meet the rapid speed of your operations.
The tension between quality and speed has essentially been resolved by this highly constrained, instructional design-led AI.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating, somewhat provocative thought to ponder as we wrap up today.
I love this part.
Think about your current talent acquisition strategy. Right now, you likely spend a massive amount of time and resources searching for candidates who already possess specific product experience.
Or who have a strong background in your exact retail needs.
Exactly. And you do that because, historically, you haven't had the time or the budget to train a novice on every complex scenario they might face.
You are basically hiring for experience to compensate for the training bottleneck.
But if this technology now allows you to instantly generate hyper-realistic cinematic training scenarios for literally any customer interaction imaginable.
And deploy it to an iPad on an associate's very first day.
Right. How does that change who you hire? Do you stop worrying entirely about a candidate's specific retail background, knowing you can perfectly simulate and train for any situation on demand?
It suggests a complete paradigm shift in recruiting. If the operational experience gap can be closed in a matter of minutes with scalable video, then baseline, inherent human empathy becomes the only hiring currency that truly matters.
You just hire for kindness, and you let the AI studio simulate the rest.
It's a completely new world out there on the retail floor.
It really is. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.